And welcome back to another edition of the I Prefer the 80s and 90s Sports Podcast over today. It is a podcast, an editorial, essentially where I talk about why I prefer sports of the 80s and 90s over today's sports. Today's show is going to be kind of educational, kind of basically an explanation as to why I decided to do the show. So that people know why I'm picking on this generation or why I feel the way I feel and why I absolutely do this show. The reason why I do this show is simply because as a sports consumer, sports fan, a former sportsman, I got simply tired of every single day watching a sporting event, watching ESPN, SportsCenter, Fox Sports, just watching sports in general, where a player, coach, analyst, journalist comes out and says, this guy, this lady is the greatest of all time, is the GOAT. And it's only happened in these last 5 years, where it seems like every conversation in sports is about who is the GOAT. And I just get sick and tired of hearing this person's the GOAT, that person's the GOAT, and said, you know what? I want to do a podcast, because I used to do podcasts. I did a podcast and a radio show called The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where I talked about the good of sports, the bad of sports, and the ugly of sports in that particular day, that particular weekend, that particular few days, that particular season. I talked about the good, the bad, the ugly of sports. And I enjoyed doing that. But even that doesn't give me the satisfaction or gives me the feeling in my gut that what I'm saying about why athletes today, in my opinion, don't really match up. By doing the good, the bad, the ugly, I just need to call out what I hear. Because I don't believe that people that they are saying are the GOATs. And so when I hear that someone says Diana Taurasi is the greatest women's basketball player, Diana Taurasi is an outstanding basketball player. But I think that they've been better players who've played in the WNBA. I think her resume is extraordinary. I won't disrespect her resume. But she has a woman, or there is a woman, who currently plays, who is outstanding and may have a better resume than she before she's done. I feel that Cheryl Miller is totally disrespected because she never got the opportunity to play in the WNBA. She only coached. And so I take Cheryl Miller over Diana Taurasi any day of the week. But then again, that's me. But to hear people say that she's the GOAT, she's really good. But I don't think she's better than Cheryl Miller. I don't think she's better than Lisa Leslie. Cynthia Cooper had an incredible WNBA career. I mean, she didn't have the college career that Taurasi had. Only a handful of people have had that. But again, I'm not going to spend this whole show debating, who is better in every league. I'm just going to say why I chose to do this show. And one of the reasons why I chose to do this show is because I remember one time ESPN had a list, and it was saying who was the greatest college basketball player of all time. And they listed like 25 names, and they had like a little tournament, like an NCAA bracket tournament. And I believe it came down to Kareem and her, or Kareem and Breanna Stewart, or something like that. I don't remember what it was. But nobody had a better college career than Kareem. Breanna Stewart, very, very close. 4 national championship games, 4 Final Fours. Christian Laettner, who people hate, but you can't disrespect his achievements. He was in the Final Four 3 times. I want to say 4 times, but I know for a fact 3 times. I mean, but that sort of like lit the fire a little bit. And of course, the football thing. The football GOAT thing bothers me because it's not accurate in the sense that as much as America loves Tom Brady, he's just the greatest winner. And he's not the greatest football player. The Patriots won Super Bowls because of their defense and because of him. And so for me, as a fan of football, whose team beat him twice in Super Bowls, I can't literally sit there and say he's the greatest football player that I've ever seen, as I've always said 100 times, that Lawrence Taylor is. And even Bill Belichick, his own coach, would agree. But that didn't set me off. What set me off was the LeBron thing, because that didn't make any sense to me as to why people think LeBron better than Michael Jordan. Or what set me off that particular day to make me start this show was watching First Take, and PK Subban said that Connor McDavid might be better than Wayne Gretzky. And then the next day they had the commissioner on, Gary Bettman, and he kind of had that look in his eye like, Connor McDavid is special. He is, And then he stopped himself and said, but win a championship first. And then that was it. Because, as I've said numerous times on this show, that there's only been one GOAT in the last 15 years. And it's not Serena. It's been Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt, there's nothing you can say bad about him, or, all he did was become the only man to win Olympic gold medals in the 100 and 200, not once, not twice, 3 times. That is total domination, Holmes, as they say. And so I just got infuriated with this whole Wayne Gretzky thing, because I'm like, come on now, y'all getting out of control. But just because somebody has a good season, he or she all of a sudden is the GOAT of their sport. And so therefore, I started a show, because I feel like you can compare generations. And people often say that you can't. No, I think you can. I think you have an eye and you watch the game played, and you say to yourself, boy, if Gretzky played today, Would he dominate hockey? I don't know if he would dominate hockey, but he would be pretty damn good. And part of me says he would dominate hockey because for two reasons. Number one, they don't hit, they don't fight. And so if you can't touch him, you can't guard him. Same thing with Michael Jordan. If you can't touch him, then you can't guard him. And if you can't guard him, he's going to set the house on fire. And with the whole Jordan thing, it's funny. Like I said before, when you have these discussions, when we were kids, we used to always come up with something. We would say Dr. J was the greatest basketball player, blah, 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 blah. And then someone would say, yeah, but Dr. J don't play defense. But he did play defense. Or he would say, Magic Johnson, better than Larry Bird. And you'd be like, why is he better than Larry Bird? Larry Bird could shoot. Magic can't shoot. And then late in Magic's career, he started shooting threes and started getting really good as a shooter. We always had something. We always came up with some other reason why this person, I remember they asked Michael Jordan, they said, who do you think is better, Vince Carter or Kobe? And Michael Jordan said, well, Kobe Bryant plays defense. Vince Carter's not as good a defense player. And people got up in arms about that. Vince Carter was mad about that. And to me, that's what the GOAT conversation and why I don't like it and why I don't understand why everyone needs to have it. Because this generation, in my opinion, hasn't produced GOATs. Do I think LeBron would do very well playing in the NBA of the 80s and 90s? Yes, I do. Would he dominate? I don't think he would dominate. I don't even think he dominates now. I think he just plays really good basketball. But do I think? But equally speaking, which I think why people don't want to compare generations, but equally speaking, if Michael Jordan played in this era of basketball where they don't play defense, he'd have a field day. I think football-wise, I think if Joe Montana, Lawrence Taylor played in this era of football, they'd have a field day. Because in their day, there are rules. That's the whole thing that people don't bring up in all these conversations. We understand that games change. Games change, evolution, everybody evolves, players should jump higher, whatever. But the rules have changed and made things different. Football, you can't block certain ways. They keep changing baseball, which is, to me, still the dumbest thing that they've done. Basketball's got simple rules too. Can't hand check. Can't play help side defense for more than 2-point-something seconds. You can't, there's so many different rules today that got started in the 80s and 90s in all sports that people think have made sport better. No, it hasn't made sport better. It made sports worse. Letting in kids at 19 years old come into the professional ranks. Kids who aren't ready. Kids who aren't good enough. Kids are in because of reputation, because of quote-unquote upside. When there's a hard-working 30-year-old man or woman trying to get into the same sport. But all the rule changes in every single sport. And that's what bothers me about this era of sport. Girls play with a different basketball. I mean, I don't get it, but that is the way it is. And for people to say that it's better, or people to say that what we're seeing is the best of the best, I've heard every announcer say that sports are better today. I've heard everybody say, you know, athletes are better today. I just don't see it. And so I don't feel like I'm picking on the athletes today. What I feel has happened is that the athletes today ran their mouths, and I'm simply just trying to shut them up and say, you're not as good as you think you are.